Hello, this is Blue Star, Explorer of Equestria, and this is my next Commander's Log for Distant Worlds 3, the halfway point. And plus 2 waypoints, because I think the halfway point was actually 2 waypoints ago, so. So yes, this is yet another experiment, and you might have noticed that might be using a slightly different microphone this time, because as I am recording this video, I'm actually in transit from waypoint 8 to waypoint 9, because as great as it is basically having the fleet carriers to be able to take us around to all these waypoints, yeah, it might be good to do at least one of these legs, myself, especially since, now they're not so bad. Now they're like, maybe an hour and 10 minutes or so. So I am currently jumping my lovely ship, the Morning Star, through space towards waypoint 9 while I am attempting to do this video. And hence using my headset microphone, so, which is not quite as nice as my normal microphone, but we'll see how this works out. So, waypoint 7, I believe, was the midpoint of Distant Worlds 3, and a lot of things have happened both in and out of game and story-wise. Parts of me were tempted to try to summarize all those things, but the things that I can remember, we went to the quote-unquote the edge of the galaxy, to the furthest system away from this bubble, and basically in some ways touched the edge of the map and then basically came back. So, yeah, that was kind of cool, but also kind of unsettling in some ways. Beyond there's literally no more stars, and there's nowhere for you to go, so everything is just black and dark, and it's not very nice. But it was pretty cool to actually be there. So, 8 had also what I almost want to call quote-unquote maze navigation, where there's so few stars that it's almost like a maze, and that there's almost one way in or out, and you have to kind of figure it out, and I honestly didn't really enjoy it, because I find that kind of frustrating, and kind of like, oh my gosh, I could get stuck if I go the wrong way, or I run out of this thing called Jumpolium that basically can boost your jump range and stuff, so it's like, yeah, I didn't quite enjoy that. But I'm glad that I did it, though. So, this is an exploration event that I think is meant to challenge you and push you to do stuff you haven't done before. Sort of like almost the old thing of that, hey, if you don't like it, you don't have to try it again, but you should at least give it a go. So, the good news is we found the lost carrier. The bad news, the crew didn't make it. There is actually a storyline going on in and around Distant Worlds 3 via the Meta Elite missions and the story that they're writing on the website. I've been sort of following it, because I must admit, I think the thing that defines the experience for me with this game is that I just don't have time to do everything that I would like to do with this game, so I really have to pick and choose. So yeah, I find myself skimming through the story really quickly, and and I honestly think that it's actually fairly well done, but I find myself not being so engaged by the story. I have a feeling if I sat down and I actually read it a little bit more thoroughly, maybe that might be a different story. Literally. But in any case, some of those things were actually kind of interesting. There was one Meta Elite mission where you actually had to use high school math. No, you fiends! It's like, yeah, they would give you a starting point, and then you would kind of have to figure out through, I think, trigonometry to, okay, where is the other system that, form this, cube? And I must admit, it's I kind of, quote-unquote, ran out of time and or patience, because it's yeah, I don't have time to do this. Fortunately, somebody was nice enough to give me the correct AI prompt so that I would be able to basically, go to the locations and complete the mission. So, parts of me will, again, summarize everything, but yeah, we'll be here for a while, so, yeah, and I have to say this briefly, is that, yeah, unfortunately, I got very upset about the mining event, because basically the mining event ended before it began. Or at least I thought it did, because, oh, wait a minute, this is the European time, not the EST time event, and, I'm sorry. But I think the long story short is, after an apology, everything's good, but still very disappointed that that guy was getting all upset about a video game. Because again, there's a lot of limitations that, this event has to be, deal with. There's only so much room on a fleet carrier for people to mine tritium, and once it's full, well, that's basically it. So, two good things that come from all of that. But A, that the mining restriction has basically been lifted that, you know, there was going to be these dedicated events, and there probably still will be, but, you know, if there's what's known as a buy order on a fleet carrier, which basically means that they are buying tritium, hence the name, that you can go and fulfill that order and, you know, those sorts of things. So basically, if the fleet carrier has room for tritium, go mine, go supply it. The problem is, of course, that, you know, those buy orders will be fulfilled within, you know, a day or two, so... but still, at least this is giving, you know, people the opportunity to mine, because there's a lot of people who are willing to mine for this event, including myself. It's like, I look forward to supplying the carriers, so... I think the other is that there's now a lot more information about the fleet carriers, where they are, where they're going, when they're planning to depart, and all those things, because yeah, there's almost two kinds of people that play this game. The people who are working, you know, 9-to-5 jobs, or in school, etc., 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 and only have a couple hours every evening to play the game. And then there's these other group of people who can sit at home and just play the game all day because I guess they're retired or something. Well, I definitely don't fall into the second category. I'm still, quote-unquote, working out the rhythm of, you know, how do I manage my regular videos at Distant Worlds 3 so that I have the ability to produce videos but still participate in Distant Worlds 3. Because, yeah, I only get a couple hours to play this every evening. I can't sit and binge this game all day. There's simply not enough time to do everything. There's not enough time to really, quote-unquote, tolerate mistakes, per se. Meaning that if I put my ship on the wrong fleet carrier, quote-unquote, fixing this could take hours of real-world time to, you know, fix. Because if I want to move that ship from a fleet carrier that's, you know, a couple thousand light years away, it's going to take hours and hours and hours for it to get here. So my evening in terms of this game is practically over at that point. We really need to have a better understanding of what the fleet carriers are going to do, where they're going to be, when they're going to go there, what are they going to do when they get there. Because we all have to be able to plan accordingly, because some of us don't have bazillions of time to sit and play this game or make these bazillions of jumps. And I would say this is my biggest criticism of Distant Worlds 3, is that from the very beginning I have never fully understood how this event was going to work. Even when I asked specifically, that they kind of answered me, but I don't think I really got a quote-unquote satisfactory answer to that. Having participated in this event, I understand now that it's not as simple as that. That yes, we jump to a location and you can go out and explore and do whatever you want, but at the same time there's all these other little mini events that happen as well. So, but anyway, now there's a dedicated page, what the fleet carriers are, what they're doing, when they're going to be leaving, what system they're going to be going to. And, you know, the fleet recap page is incredibly useful because a lot of stuff happens in a lot of different places. Sometimes there's stuff that happens with the story. Sometimes there's stuff with these quote-unquote science projects that's going on. Maybe there was an event that happened, and, you know, if you want like a summary of all the things, if you want to understand everything that's happened, that can be really problematic and difficult. Now there's a page that basically says, here, this is basically what happened during this week or during this waypoint. And if you want to learn more about it, here's links to that information. And I would say that, yeah, the Distant Worlds 3 staff have definitely been doing a good job of dealing with these things. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but the important thing is that they are making those improvements. When there's a problem, they are doing their best to try to address it and fix it. So, again, like with the mining, I'm sure there's still going to be these dedicated mining events, but the good news is that now they've changed it so that now you can basically mine all the time. I mean, whether you actually be able to fulfill these orders is going to be but at the same time, at least now they're giving people a chance to participate. And especially during the last waypoint, waypoint 8, there was actually a lot of mining going on. It was actually a very, very difficult logistical challenge, because there was actually 2 waypoints. There was the main waypoint, and it was basically in this part of space where there were so few stars that you had to do, again, what I call like maze navigation, which honestly is not very fun. And also very prohibitive to, you know, other people who don't have ships with lots of huge jump range, and yeah. And then there was another waypoint that was a much easier waypoint that had a lot more stars to it and was a much better location for basically other people to do stuff in, is the short answer. And that actually became the mining system because it actually had a tritium hotspot in the system and also had lots of other stars around it. Anyway, they were using, I think at one point, all of the fleet carriers to ferry people back and forth between these for people who just didn't have the jump range or were having trouble getting in and out of this place. And that was a very big logistical challenge. They had to basically run these fleet carriers on a schedule. And again, this is a totally manual process. These people had to manually go in and set these fleet carrier jumps and all those things at these times as best as they could. So yeah, so I'm very appreciative of that. So yeah, they worked very, very hard to do that and make sure that people had a chance to actually participate, not only with the waypoint, but also with the mining. But because the fleet carriers were actually jumping back and forth all these times, they actually needed a lot more tritium. So there was a lot more opportunity for mining, and they tried very hard to make sure that everybody got a chance to participate. And I'm very appreciative of that. So, roar. I will say, Waypoint 8 was, to me, a double-edged sword, in that, basically, because again, they had 2 waypoints, and one was in a system that was very difficult to get to. The upside, though, is that they actually were there for, essentially 2 whole weeks, because they were giving this sort of like a chance for people to catch up and stuff, particularly these people who were doing what's known as the Raw Runner Challenge, which, from vaguely what this is that, you basically take a ship that's quote-unquote unengineered, which basically means it's like not upgraded, and you basically jump all these jumps by yourself. So those ships have probably like half the jump range an engineered ship does. So yeah, they were in for a very long haul. So all I'm going to say is that's definitely not for me, but good for them. So one big development that was very interesting is that the community goal that I was complaining of, struggling with at the very beginning of Distant Worlds 3, actually did have a real world purpose, because now I want to introduce you to Rainbow's End. I know this isn't an MOP reference by any stretch of the imagination, but having watched a lot of Generation 1 recently, I still find this incredibly amusing. So, let me introduce you to Rainbow's End, the new furthest station in the galaxy. Roar! And also one of the most hardest to get to, because it's basically in a section where there's basically no stars, so... It was so weird, basically being back at a station after all this time. But that's kind of the thing that is kind of interesting and almost fun about this, is that you're basically on your own. Even with a fleet carrier support, it's like, it's just you, the fleet carrier, and, the ships and everything that are around you. There's no stations, there's no settlements, there's nothing. So, that's what in some ways exploration is all about, so... And another interesting development was that the Caspian, the big, explorer ship, well, literally, it's one of the new large explorers, has just come out of basically pre-order, shall we say, where basically you have to pay real money for it, and now you can just buy it for in-game credits. So, long story short is, this ship has a lot of extra range if you use it correctly, but it has to have all the correct modules installed, which are not available at the station. So some people were using, shall we say, in-game tricks to go back to the bubble, buy the ship, and then engineer it properly, and then come back to the waypoint. But I kind of committed at the beginning of Distant Worlds 3 that I'm not going to buy the Caspian, because it's like, yeah, this is like a month or so before the event. It's like, I'm not going to have time to engineer to this thing properly and do all the other things that, I was planning to do. But I did decide to buy a Caspian, and I'll transfer it back to the carrier, and I will look forward to engineering it and equipping it properly once we're back at the bubble, because this is definitely a ship worth having. So, I will continue to use my lovely Morning Star because, well, for what I'm doing, which is exobiology, which is, well, scanning alien plants, it's actually really good because it basically can land in places that the bigger ships, particularly the Caspian, ugh, couldn't even think about. So, roar, so yes, I'm still continuing to jump through the systems. We got 33 more jumps to go. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like, I'm starting to remember why I don't really like doing all these jumps, because it takes a long time to do all these jumps. But at the same time, it's one of those things of that, yeah, it takes a lot of time, but once you get there, it's just totally worth it. It's because, like, yeah, man, I made it, so roar. I mean, if I decide to do this again, I'll probably use my Anaconda, the Morning Star Victory, because, well, it has a lot more jump range. Well, I am kind of, well, part of the reason I'm doing this is because, like, I don't have to wait for the fleet carriers to get there, because they'll be there in, like, you know, a day or two, but, you know, in the course of, you know, maybe another half hour or so, I'm gonna be at the waypoint, and, you know, I could either do stuff now or do it tomorrow, so... Overall, I would say Distant Worlds 3 has been a pretty cool event. I mean, I'm definitely glad that I participated in this, because it is just so amazing, and I've literally gone to places in the galaxy I've never remotely been to before, or even thought about going to before. Sometimes I feel like, yeah, I'm almost cheating. I'm just sitting on this fleet carrier, and I'm letting it take me around to all these places, like I'm on a cruise or something. But at the same time, that's exactly why I'm so appreciative of, you know, the staff and the fleet carriers. This opens up this event to people who would have not even remotely considered it. At the very beginning of this event, I basically offered people a ride on my fleet carrier to this launch system, and one person basically bought the game like last week. It's like, and that person in some ways, you know, is not remotely ready for this because they're just learning how to play the game. But at the same time, because of the fleet carriers, that person is now able to go on these expeditions. So, roar! This expedition has a whole range of abilities, from people who participated in Distant Worlds 1 and 2 and know everything about exploring, to people who have literally just bought the game like last week. That makes this event difficult, because obviously to, you know, appeal and be able to be accessible to everyone is definitely a logistical and, you know, just difficult challenge. But I think that they, in the end, have actually been rising to that challenge fairly well. I mean, there have been instructions for, you know, people who don't know how this works, or like, here's a route, you know, to get in and out of those, you know, waypoint 8s, in case you don't know. They've been doing their best to try to actually, you know, make this accessible to everybody and making sure that everyone is having a good time. However, I do think that sometimes the difficulty may be a little bit up there. Again, waypoint 8 was a double-edged sword. I mean, we got 2 whole weeks there, which is really nice. You know, I got to explore, you know, systems and scan things, which is kind of what I wanted to do. The trouble is that, yeah, the maze navigation thing made it really difficult, and I had to almost adjust my playstyle the way that I was going to do this. Sometimes I think the level of difficulty might be a little bit too up there. Like, it's like, it was a logistical challenge, I think, honestly, for everybody. I think was I've never even heard of this, or I know how to do this, but again, they've been trying to help people and give people instructions so that if you've never done this, you have an idea of how to do it. But at the same time, I'm hoping that waypoint 9 will be a little bit more, quote-unquote, normal, where the fleet carriers will not be simply moving around all the time, and they'll be staying put the way that a fleet carrier typically does. Glad that I had all the time to be able to, you know, explore and find the things that I did, but at the same time, having the fleet carriers being constantly moving around and stuff, and, you know, having the only other station basically being in quote-unquote maze navigation, made this a very logistical challenge. But yeah, overall, I would say this has gone actually fairly well. I mean, there's certainly been its challenges, because yeah, this is the first Distant Worlds, you know, expedition that's had fleet carriers, and that changes everything. The first 2, it was just basically you and your ship and stuff. There were no fleet carriers, so it was basically, here, go there, and, you know, all that stuff. Now they have to start thinking about, okay, you know, we have to let people know when the fleet carrier is leaving, where is it going, and all those things. At the same time, this is an exploration / mystery event. They Obviously, all this stuff has been planned out in advance. They know where we're going and what's going to happen when we get there and all those sorts of things, so they can't reveal everything at once. That would be no fun. But at the same time, like at every waypoint, starting to, give out much more information about, like, when are we leaving? What can you expect when we get there? And, oh, we think you should do this or stock up on these things first because we have a feeling you might be needing them in the future. I appreciate those kinds of things, so I think from a purely objective standpoint, there have definitely been good things and bad things that could have gone better, or people could have been informed more of what was expected and what was going to happen. But the good news is I think the Distant Worlds 3 staff have been constantly making adjustments and changing things and making improvements so that people have a better understanding of what's going to happen and when it's going to happen so that people can plan appropriately, but at the same time not just simply giving everything away. And definitely been incredibly helpful and been working very, very hard to make sure that everyone can participate, and if there's a problem, attempting to fix it. So me personally, it's been kind of weird because, there's been a lot of things that have happened, including the Olympics. They're only on for, 2 weeks every 4 years, so that basically took precedence over everything, so... Personally, I've also been trying to, quote-unquote, get into rhythm of, like, how do I balance my regular videos with Distance World 3 and the other things that are going on? Like, when do I record? When do I edit? When do I play Distant Worlds 3? When do I do something other than Distant Worlds 3? I've been honestly struggling with that, but I think I'm starting to get into rhythm a little bit now and, starting to figure those things out. Like, even with this video, it's like, I'm basically, spending almost like more than an hour jumping. You know what? Maybe this is a good time to do some, audio recording, and I can, make my next commander's log this way. But again, we'll see. I mean, I have a feeling that maybe if I do decide to do it this way again, I'll probably set up my nicer microphone. For me personally, it's like, I honestly have liked this event, but it is difficult, quote-unquote, fitting it in with everything else and without having it take over, shall we say. And this is something I've continued to struggle with, is that I just can't do everything. But I would say it's actually been an overall positive experience, because again, I've literally been to places I've never been before. I've scanned alien plants that I've never even seen before, starting to learn more about exploration and how it works. So I actually started in Excel of, like, when I find like an alien plant life, okay, what star type was it in? What planet type was I on? What atmosphere type was it on? Blah, 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 blah. Because I know I could go into Google and just find it out, but that's no fun. I kind of want to figure it out for myself. So, but anyway, I would say Distant Worlds 3 has overall, it's been challenging, perhaps overly challenging at some times. Definitely more than in some ways I would like, but it's definitely been good to try all these things. I've been playing this game for a while, and there's things that I've kind of known about, but I've never known about what they're for, and now I've actually not only know what they're for, I've actually used them, so but, I mean, it at times may have been overly challenging, but I would say that overall it's actually been a very positive experience, because I do enjoy exploring. There's just something so fun about, you would think, scanning alien plants. Well, that sounds boring. Well, yes, but at the same time, jumping into a system, not knowing what you might find, or, ooh, what if I scan this planet? Am I gonna find something that I've never scanned before? Ooh, that's just so exciting. I actually have kind of wanted to go on a big exploration trip like this, and with the fleet carrier support, I can now participate, however I want to. If I want to do all these jumps, I can, but if I want to just sit on the fleet carrier and, just wait for it to get there, I can do that too. And again, that's made this event accessible to so many more people now. It's had its ups and downs, but the good news is the Distant World staff are doing, I would say, an incredible job, and they're definitely learning and adapting and trying to make things better for everyone. And overall, this has definitely been a very positive experience, and I look forward to seeing what happens next and what awaits us in the future. So, roar! Well, I think I've finished recording the audio for this video, and I've still got 15 more jumps to go. Oh. But almost there, almost there. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing, and until next time, this is Blue Star. Stay strong And in this case, explore on! Blue Star out.